Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chesswise. Today we are at the next topic, that is the theoretical Rook Endgames. We have considered some cases of Rook pawn. Now it's time to go back to some positions related to the Lucena position. Now this position very much looks like a Lucena position, but do note that the pawn is on the 6th rank and the black's rook is ideally placed on the long side, and the gap between the pawn and rook we can see is of 3 files. There are 3 files between them. So when the pawn has not reached the 7th rank, we have discussed positions before where the rook was on the f file. The rook wasn't able to interfere to the opponent's rook checks. This time the rook is on the d1 square. This makes the position somewhat special and little bit difficult as well. I must tell you that because of the distance of these 3 files, the position with black to play can be drawn. Of course, we know white to play is very easy with rook g1 check and the king will be cut away by 2 files and then white will get the Lucena position. Let's see how to draw the game with black on the move. Firstly, black has to ensure that the white king doesn't reach e8 and it should not secure its position on the e8 square. So let's get started with the moves. Rook a7 check. We see here that the move king e8 is just bad because comes kf6. Only way to protect the pawn is rook e1, but then rook e7 check and e6 is lost and the game is drawn. Similar is k d6. Here black can just get the king to f8. And after rook f1 check, king comes underneath the pawn and we see that we are reaching the Philidor position. After rook f1 check, k e8, rook h1, black has to play the correct move, rook a6 check, first pushing the king away, and here the very important move, rook a2. The rook prepares itself to deliver checks from the rear. Do note that rook a5 check, king f6 will make the drawn position losing. The king will settle on the 6th rank. So all these positions I have covered while looking at the Lucena and Philidor positions. Hence after rook a7 check, the real attempt is the move rook d7. Here there are 2 ways of drawing the game, but we will look at only one of them right now, which is going to make the technique easy to remember and understand. So we have to just remember that we should not allow the king to reach the e8 square with ease. So black just goes with the move rook a8. Rook a1 is another way to get a draw, but that is little more complicated. After rook a8, black just waits. He doesn't allow white to go k e8, and white has choice of 4 moves here. One, he can try k d6 check. Second, he can just wait with the move with rook b7. Third, he can try to set a trap with the move rook d6. And fourthly, it can challenge the a8 rook with the move rook d8, trying to get his king to the 8th rank. So we will look at each one of them in detail. After k d6 check, we have to note just one thing here, that whenever the rook is able to deliver checks from the side, the gap of 3 ranks in between or the 3 files in between will ensure that the king will have to be just driven away. So here we can play the move kf6 and easily allow rook f7. The rook going away from the rank will make our task very easy. Now what happens? White cannot play e7 and the rook is ready to give checks from the side and the game will be drawn. As soon as the rook returns to b7 or d7, king again comes back to f6. And although black is, we can see that ready to give check with his rooks. So this position will be drawn. Let's look at the next move. Rook b7. An interesting attempt. White is trying to set a small trap. If king is played to g8, then white just has king f6. When we will see that the rook will be stuck badly and we will get a position from the Philidor position gone bad. So here black should just wait with the move kg6. Now white is unable to improve his position because if the rook goes back, then rook starts giving check. King cannot come to the 8th rank. Let's look at two options now. One is king d6. When we just now saw that after the move kf6, rook f7 check kg6, we return to the previous position, and after e7 there is just king f7. When the e8 square is nicely guarded and the black rook is all set to give checks, best would be to go after kd7, rook e8, and e7 pawn is attacked. So as soon as the king goes back, again rook a8 and the position is drawn. So now we have to look at two main ways. According to me, the most critical line is the move rook d6, which is somewhat trappy. And for instance, if rook a7 check, king e8, black plays kf6, then e7 comes with a check and black loses. Rook a7 check, k e8, kf6 blunder, because e7 comes with a check and now the pawn reaches the 7th rank. King has to go away, and we see that this rook will be able to obstruct the checks and white will win the game. So it's best not to allow the king on the 8th rank. Black should just play the simple move king g6, keeping the previous variations in mind. Here after kd7, black has to be very careful because rook a7 check, k e8, and then we see that white has the move e7 check. After rook a8 check, again rook comes to d8. So black will again repeat the position with the move kg7, when after e7 he uses the fact that after kf7 there is no rook f6 check and the king comes to the control of the e8 square. According to me, this is the most dangerous line for black. After the move rook d8 here, again rook a7 check, this time k e8 allows kf6. So king d6, again black has to be very careful. If now king f6, then rook f8 check, king moves away e7 and the pinning square is controlled, then white will win the game. But now comes rook a6 check, forcing the king back, k e5. After k e7, we can reach the previous position either with the move rook a7 check, rd7, rook a8, or we can just play the move king g7, which leads to drawn position. So goes to e5, rook a5 check. If the king goes away, then kf6 and the position is drawn. And after the move rook d8, black simply retreats back to the 8 square, and we see that at the most we will get a repetition of the moves. After kd6, rook a6, k e7 will reach the similar position. Rook a6, k e7, rook a7 check, rook d7, and here black can play rook a6 or rook a8. Both lead to the drawn position. After rook d8, rook a7, kd6, rook a6 check, k e5, rook a5 check, rook d5, black again goes with the move rook a8, when after rook d7 check, black has to play the right move kg6, king f8 just allows king f6, and after kg6 we see that if rook goes to f7, the black rook will start giving checks from the a file, and after the move kd6, black just plays the move king f6. Very important move, because to e7 we want king f7, rook d8 and rook a6 check. Now king moves away, then the e7 pawn would be lost and the game would be drawn. And after the move rook f7 check, kg6, we see that the rook has now gone away and rook's check from the a file cannot be shielded by this rook. So the rook might have to return and we will reach the previous position again by transposition. Of course, the analysis was somewhat complicated. We should play these moves over the board again and again to get used to the technique. I hope you are finding these lessons useful. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.